FEMA hasn't had an administrator in 16 months.
Right.
Would we go without a Department of Homeland Secretary?
No.
Or Security Secretary, a
No.
Department of War,
Right.
Department of State? The question people need to ask themselves is, why?
Yeah.
Why is it that a disaster cannot stay in the news life cycle more than about 30 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually had a conversation with a person about this very topic who is in international news media. And she told me, she said, Kevin, it is just very, very difficult to keep disasters, because disasters affect the people that are impacted.
Yeah.
And they do not affect anybody else.
Sure.
Iran right now affects everybody.
Sure.
And that's going to be the big story.
And it's going to drown out everything else.
It's going to drown out everything else.
Yeah.
And when you talk about emergency management and on a local disaster, especially, we say all disasters are local.
Yeah.
When you get to that local level, it's impacting that local community. And then inside of the local community, you've got neighborhoods that are impacted, but a neighborhood a mile away isn't.
Yeah.
They could care less.
Sure.
Literally could care less.
Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Chambers, Changes, and Conversations. Welcome to the podcast, sir, Florida Division of Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie, and we also have our very own Public Safety Director, Jodie Fiske. Welcome in, guys, and thank you for making the time. I know you're a busy guy. You were down in Sarasota this morning. Where are you headed to this afternoon?
Polk this afternoon.
Polk County, okay, and comfortable driving accommodations, I understand,
yes, absolutely.
Which is great. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about, because you guys have a history, Jodie and Kevin, you guys know each other, and the last time I remember talking to you was during, what did we determine? Was it Helene or Milton?
Both.
Right.
All of the above.
We were out at South Coquina Beach, and I believe the governor was en route, and you had just got done saying some really nice things about our director of public safety. What is the history there? What's the connection between you guys?
Well, I used to be her boss.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's the easiest way to start, is I used to be her boss. Before I was her boss, we were, I would say, co-colleagues, because I was actually working more at a local level than I was at the state level. So, Jodie and I have known each other a while now. And first, as I was a county director, she worked for the state. Then I came on as the State Division Emergency Management Chief of Staff and Deputy Director. She worked for me at that point in time. And so, I've known Jodie. She's been down here in this general southwest. Got to get on the right side of the state this morning. Southwest side of the state now for about 10 years, give or take. Yeah. So, but I mean, that's, and again, we talk about emergency management relationships, that everything starts and ends with a relationship. When that disaster happens, whatever it might be. Right now, we're in the middle of the worst drought that Florida's seen since 1950. Last week it was since 2001. This week it's since 1950. If she needs help and she calls the state, when I see her phone ring, I know that she'll text me. If it's just, hey, checking in on my former boss, how are you doing, this type of stuff. If the phone rings, I know I need to answer it, because that's that relationship that says, look, she wouldn't be calling me unless she absolutely needed something from me, and vice versa. Vice versa when we've got something happen in another portion of the state or even outside the state. If she sees me calling her, she's gonna pick up the phone and what do you need and what can I do to help?
And how do you think, Jodie, that benefits the citizens of Manatee County, that relationship kind of being pre-existing to even you making your way onto the stage of Manatee County government?
Well, it's like Kevin said, the relationships are really important, because it's not just the relationship that we have. It's the emergency managers in the state. We all know each other. We all work together. And so we know who to call for what. We know who to call that's a subject matter expert in something, or who's been through, if we're going through a disaster, like we worked together last in the county for Piney Point. That required a lot of us coming together. We had folks from Pasco County. We had the state was there, the other state agencies like DEP, and all of that relied on the relationships that we all have with each other to get boots on the ground as fast as possible.
What is that dynamic like from working for Kevin to now kind of working with him in this space? What has changed about that?
I don't know that too much has changed. I still call and ask a whole lot of questions and look for guidance on things. And so I was very, very lucky in the timing of when I came to the state and when Kevin came to the state to start building on that relationship and learning from him. And I still do.
So 30 plus years of experience for you, Kevin Guthrie, over 20, I believe, for you, Jodie. Correct?
Really 10.
10?
Just 10
Okay.
for disaster response.
Okay, so we have roughly 40 years of emergency management prowess at our fingertips at any time. And that's important, I think, for listeners to know and our citizens to know that, the team, especially when it comes to emergencies, we scale up very effectively. And that looks like, first, obviously, involvement from the county on a county level. And if stuff gets bad enough, the state comes in. What does that threshold look like? I don't know if I've ever learned that, and I've been activated a couple times, but what is that threshold where the county kind of steps in? Say there's an emergency that happens on a hyper-local basis, and then the county steps in. What does that look like from our standpoint? What's that threshold?
We work really hard to know what our resources are. And when we start, we don't wait until we get to the point that we need something. We can see that we are going to need help. We are going to need mutual aid from our neighbors and possibly from the state. So, it's just having that operating picture and knowing what you're looking at. And the thing is that Kevin's very good about keeping his finger on the pulse of what's going on around the state. So really 9 times out of 10, if we've got something going on, he's already texted to just say, hey, we're tracking, let us know if you need anything.
That's awesome. So I guess it's important maybe to take a step back now that we've, ventured forward a little bit. For those who might not be familiar, Kevin, can you walk us through your role as director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management and kind of what that looks like on a day-to-day basis? I mean, like I picture you in a room with a bunch of computer screens all over the state just monitoring, what's going on. I'm sure it's, maybe it's like that, maybe it's not. Yeah.
No, I mean it's not too far off from that. At my computer at my desk inside of the State EOC, there's 2 computers, 4 screens. So that on my typical day looks like I come in and I check some emails, I do some stuff, I check the weather, see what the hazards are that we're going to face for the day throughout the state of Florida, and then it just kind of builds from there as stuff starts trickling in. You have an overturned tanker of something really, really bad on the turnpike, to you got a wildfire in the panhandle, to you got a flooding event going here or wherever, right? So certainly at the state level, I think what you envision is there's an awful lot of monitoring. To answer your question about what is our mission, what is it we do, and I do think it's in our mission statement to coordinate, collaborate, and communicate with our stakeholders for a more resilient Florida. That is our mission statement, and I dive into that because when I came to the division, it was we prepare for, respond to, recover from, mitigate against disasters. I kind of look at it like this. I'm a former police officer. It really gets on my nerves when I see mission statements of police departments, and along the bottom of the car it says to protect and serve. Well, that's kind of core to what you do. That's like core value. You got to kind of do that no matter if you have a mission statement or not. Inside of emergency management, same thing. We need to prepare, respond, recover, mitigate. That's organic to what we do. But the agencies that do things the best are the ones that can communicate clearly and effectively, coordinate with all the stakeholders, and not just coordinate with them, but also collaborate with them. It does me no good to have the city of Bradenton feuding with Manatee County and both of them coming to me. We need to coordinate and collaborate together. What are the municipality's needs versus what the county needs are? When does the county need to step into the municipality? And it kind of goes back to your first question that you opened with Jodie on. And then when those two have reached their limit, then lean on the state to figure out what that is. And that's going to look different. And I know this is more of a Manatee-centric podcast, but at the same time, that is going to look completely different in Manatee County as it does in Hardy County,
Sure,
just a few miles away. What is your breaking point? There are going to be things inside of Manatee County government that they are very, very good at doing. There's going to be some widget. I don't know what the widget is, like, for example, Broward County. Broward County never ever thinks about, or nobody in the state of Florida thinks that Broward County Sheriff's Office, Broward County Fire Rescue cannot respond to their day-to-day stuff. The thing that's going to break Broward County is pumps, flood pumps. When it floods in Broward County, it's bad. The one thing they need from me more than anything else is pumps. What is that thing here in Manatee County? Those are the type of conversations that, Jodie and I have on a constant basis. Where are you at? What do you need? What are you anticipating needing? What gap does the county have? That's what we do. So at the end of the day, yeah, I've got screens. I've got plenty of screens in the vehicle that I drive up and down the interstate with. That's a mobile office, if you will. But at the end of the day, it's getting out of the data analytics and knowing and understanding what we call the common operating picture of what's going on in the state of Florida on a given day. It gets back down to, at the granular level, at the city, the county level, what are those areas that are gaps? And again, that gap looks completely different in all 67 counties and all 411 cities throughout the state.
And I think in what you just said there is a really interesting thing, because I think we've made some headway, especially with working with the city of Bradenton, the island cities. My gosh, I think you remember being in that room when Charlie Bishop got everybody on the phone and literally described to them why it takes so long to turn water off to the island. Anytime we would coordinate with them, we're like, hey, we got to shut off water. And they're like, well, it's like 8 hours out. Well, it takes 6 hours to turn the water off.
Right.
And it took somebody getting on the phone with them and letting them know that this reality existed. So there's a certain expectation from your standpoint that we're doing our job in coordinating with all the different cities, municipalities, so that when you come in, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and I would encourage your listeners that are not government. You are a resident of Manatee County. It goes one level lower. It is at my house where I live at in Manatee County, Florida. I need to be ready too. What are the things that I need to do to be less of a victim, disaster survivor? What are the things that I can do within my budget, within my framework, that allow me to be better at protecting myself? And again, that when we say disasters are local, I said it this morning down in your neighbors to the south, Sarasota, hyperlocal. I'm talking about your address where you live at. How do you be more prepared? How do you respond to what's happening in your, not just your neighborhood, at your address? What are the things that you can do to be more prepared? And then you should communicate. Let's say you're a part of an HOA or a condo association. What are your gaps? The board of that HOA or COA should know what those gaps are. Those gaps should then start being communicated to maybe a local fire chief, battalion chief, the local precinct commander, or however you guys are structured here in Manatee County, so that we start sharing that information that, hey, we're good on this, we're going to start having problems with this, and
Right.
and it just builds from there.
And that's more than just a 1 month leading into
100%.
the start of hurricane season. It's a year-round job, right? I mean, and there's a lot that we do, even in the, I guess, quote-unquote off-season, that we do, Jodie, to prepare citizens for just that thing. Can we talk about maybe some of those things, those outreach initiatives that we work on?
Yeah, so our EM team does presentations year-round, and they've actually tailored their presentations to the areas that they're going to. So if it's an HOA or a condo association, they're talking specifically about that area. We engage with our CERT teams to they go out and they do presentations as well. We hold events at the EOC year-round for folks to come in and ask questions. The one in June tends to be really heavily attended, especially with new residents that are coming in and they all have questions. Somebody moving down here from Michigan has no idea how to prepare for a hurricane. They're great with winter weather, but
Right.
if it snows here, we have a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of outreach, and it's year round. And that was something we implemented starting in 2024, where it was all year. They do over 100 presentations a year.
Yeah, and we a lot of people don't know this. We have a dedicated communications coordinator that lives, breathes, works with you guys over at the Public Safety Center, Francesca Constantini, who's absolutely wonderful, who does great work in letting people know, especially ahead of time, what do you need to do to harden your home? What do you need to do to make sure that you have this communication with your neighbors? Maybe there's elderly neighbors that you need to check in on. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we just do. It's like breathing after a while, right? Like we continue to do it, always looking for ways to improve it. So I definitely appreciate that perspective. So technology, we touched on it a little bit, and I geek out about this all the time. Technology obviously playing a bigger role in emergency management. How are tools and data shaping that decision-making, not just from a local level, but a state level as well?
Well, I will tell you at a state level, I'm only as good as the information I'm receiving and then processing that information into what we call actionable intelligence. And I know that we have a big military footprint in this particular listening area. So I'm not talking about military intelligence, S2 type stuff. I'm talking about, taking rumor and making sure that we vet it and verify it and it's actionable intelligence. We can actually act on it. So that for us is a really big deal. We are doing some of that stuff now through, XDEC goes in and scrubs social media. We utilize Florida State University, the Dial Center, and Dial stands for something, and I cannot remember what it is off the top of my head, but you can look it up, maybe reference it in the podcast. But the students at Dial, they look at information across the entire social media platforms, all platforms. For example, state government, we don't have TikTok, and we don't have some of these other accounts. However, FSU Dial Center goes and looks and scrubs all that information. So they give us a report on a day-to-day basis. They, right now, lots of stuff going on with Iran. They're scrubbing Iran information every single day as it relates to the state of Florida and let us know what's going on in the state of Florida. So we're utilizing technology on a social media side. We're utilizing technology here locally. We have one of the things we have is the Beacon app, BEACON, the Beacon app. You can download it on your phone. It also is it is a 24/7, 365 radio element that allows us to push information to airwaves. Craig Fugate is a really big proponent of this program, and he's been a big public proponent of public radio. And I didn't believe Craig. I don't know why I didn't believe Craig, but I went back and vetted and verified, and he was right. Do you know that in every single hurricane that has hit the state of Florida since the inception of public radio, we've never lost one public radio broadcasting tower?
Wow.
Never.
Is that because we've got like backups to the backups, or is it just?
I think twofold.
Yep.
I think number one, they were built in the 50s and 60s when stuff was built to last.
Sure.
Number two, I think they were smart in that they didn't build them on the coast. They moved those inland because, of course, the radio tower umbrella, reaches out. You don't have to put it on the coast. You can actually move that inland. So we have yet to lose one of those. So we provide our counties, our cities, our state government, even the federal government in a disaster. This Beacon app or a local, probably in the 91 point something era here with your local public radio, where we will push out dedicated 24/7 information on a disaster. And if you're like saying, I don't know what to believe, if this TikTok thing is true or this Facebook thing is true or X or whatever your soup du jour for social media is, you can actually go to a radio station and listen to our official communication. Yeah. And it's a way to vet and verify at the local level. That's just yet another way. And I know the question was centered around technology. You may say, well, public radio is not technology. Actually, what we do is as I see your questions there in front of us, we take text and we shoot it into a system, and then it takes your broadcast voice and broadcasts it out over the radio just as it is. So we're utilizing generative AI to generate that voice that your local county is familiar with on the public radio waves, or maybe even my voice or the governor's voice or Craig Fugate's voice, and pushing that message out. So that's where the automation comes in, and we're engaging that. We've been engaging that for about the last 2-3 years now. So those are just two of the technologies. I know that you guys here locally have a couple of technologies that are actually pilots for the state of Florida that I'm sure Jodie probably wants to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's Peregrine, right?
Yep.
Oh man, it's so cool. It's so forward thinking. Yeah, tell us please about Peregrine.
So the Peregrine, we get a lot of real time data coming in. So lift station data, we're now pulling it directly from SCADA. We are working with the AI element for like our 911 CAD calls. So it's the AI is pulling keywords from the 911 dispatchers as they're putting the information into a system. So if someone's having a medical emergency, it doesn't alter how they dispatch it, but they could also say, and my house is flooding. So the AI will pull that and map that for our emergency responders. And this year we're actually going to have every single response agency, so all the fire districts, all of our law enforcement entities, and emergency management and Manatee County government will all have one platform that we're operating on, so that everybody will actually have that common operating picture, which is super, super hard to get, especially, our county is unique. We've got 7 independent fire districts. And so when emergency services comes together, East Manatee is getting some information, but South Manatee has something else, and then Parish has something else. Now they're all going to see the same information on one dashboard that's verified, vetted information that is coming directly from the residents.
And why is that important from a decision-making standpoint? When you're in the throes of it and you need to make a decision now, why does that good, reliable, common operating picture data mean so much to us?
It's where we're pushing our resources, and it's a ways to push a resource out to find out that where they went was not actually where they needed to go. Now the response time is longer, and it's you don't want to do that. You are limited in the resources that you have before landfall and during landfall, and especially after. After is when the bulk of the resources are going to come in. But the work that we're doing beforehand, up to the point that we have to stop running trucks because of the wind, you want to make sure they're going to the right space, and you want to make sure they're doing what they need to do. But with the amount of data that we have coming in, the best thing that I like about it, because I break all technology that I touch, and it turns out vehicles. But
You went through a lot of vehicles.
I did. It's having all of that information. I can manipulate these dashboards however I want, but I'm never touching the original data source that they're coming from. And so that makes the outside vendors that are providing us their data comfortable, because we're not going to mess with their system. But for us, there's some information that I need, and then there's some information that I don't need that we can just filter out and push to the side. But the fact that it's coming in real time is amazing. That allows us to make our decisions with the most current information.
Yeah, and I know you won't toot your own horn, but I will toot. We're being considered, because we're not just a part of this conversation. We're leading this conversation on this specific technology. Tell us a little bit. I know you hate, again, but a little bit about how we're being recognized. And we're being considered for some awards, and even the state is looking to us on how we can roll this thing out on a larger regional basis.
So we're the only emergency management division that was using it for large-scale disasters like hurricanes. The platform itself started off as a real-time crime center, which has been great for law enforcement agencies, but for the emergency management side of the house, we are not law enforcement. Peregrine took that step to integrate with FEMA, with the National Weather Service, with NOAA, and they showed us a little bit with what they were doing up in Fairfax County, or Loudoun County, Virginia. But Loudoun County does not experience hurricanes. They just don't have those large weather events that we see down here. And so we threw a lot at them with what information do we need, and they delivered. And we did not have them, we had just signed the contract with them prior to Hurricane Debbie, like days before Debbie. We all saw the flooding, the rainfall, all of that during Debbie. Peregrine also historically holds the data. And so we were actually able to go back after the storm and look at the data from the river and stream gauges, and we were able to see the exact time down to the second when those levels started to rise. So for Helene, we had some of the dashboards up and running, and we were able to watch the storm surge in real time. We were watching our lift stations go down in real time. We knew if that lift station was on generator power? Did it flood?
Saltwater inundation, right?
Right.
Exactly.
We knew what was happening. And so as a result of that, we targeted our damage assessments in the areas where the lift stations failed so that we had all of our numbers. We're also pulling data from the property appraiser at the same time. So when we go to the state and say, these are our damage numbers, we're not guessing. We're not, hey, maybe we're in this ballpark. We were down to the dollar of this is what our damages are. And that was huge.
And what does that mean as far as a reimbursement standpoint? Because we were really early in that, right?
Yeah, well, I will tell you this. You were so fast, you were waiting on everybody else in the state of Florida to get their damage numbers in.
Wow.
So, for example, I wish that we could write a disaster deck request to the President of the United States for those people that do it right and they do it effectively, and then tag on after the fact others. But there's a lot to unpack here. There's an algorithm of thresholds and things like that. What you want to do is, and not every emergency management agency really does, everybody does response. Everybody does response. Everybody prepares for disasters. When you start doing damage assessments, that's considered the recovery. That's the start of recovery. We have agencies around the state of Florida, both municipal and county, that do not do recovery. That's now Public Works, or to your point, the property appraiser's office and other entities start to pick that stuff up. And literally emergency management takes a backseat to what is the biggest part of a disaster response and recovery, and that is the recovery. I've said it before, and I take a little bit of this again from my mentor Craig Fugate, is we're never really judged by how we respond to a disaster. We're judged by how we recover from it. The recovery is what's going to bite you in the butt every single time. So what this now allows us to do is, literally everybody was waiting on, or let me rephrase, Manatee was waiting on everybody else. We had data so fast. They were ready to make their declarations, tell us exactly how much money they had spent, what their projections were going to be, that, counties and agencies to the north, I'm like, and they're big agencies, I'll just say that. I'm like pulling teeth. Guys, we got to have your information. Well, it's going to take us another week to get that information. And that's just unacceptable. You should be able to do what we call a rapid damage assessment with rapid estimates in about 72 hours after landfall, after the tornado, after the wildfire, whatever that's going to be. We should be able to wrap up some type of rapid damage assessment, get some rough numbers into the federal government, into the president to ask for a presidential disaster declaration. If we had everybody on a system or system of systems to where we could start collecting that data, it would be much, much better. But again, when it goes back to what we were kind of talking about before the segment started, which is emergency management is not created equal, and not to go way down this rabbit hole, but I'll tell, let's say we have 1,000 listeners out there right now. If you ask them what law enforcement is, you're going to have probably 90% overlap on the adjectives and the verbs that are what are law enforcement. Same thing for fire department, same thing with rescue. Even if you take your non-traditional first responders of electrical line workers, nurses, things of this nature, you're going to get about 90% overlap. You ask the same 1,000 people, what is emergency management? What do they do? You're going to have so many varying degrees. You may only have 10% overlap instead of 90% overlap. And that's a culture and identity problem. What is emergency management? Because again, at the state of Florida, I do all 4 verticals. I do response, recovery, mitigation, and preparedness. I believe here, Jodie's responsible for all 4 verticals. But you can go very, very close around us to this county, and it's just preparedness and response. They don't do the recovery piece. They don't do the mitigation piece.
Yeah, and that's a whole other element to it, right?
Yeah, that's its own episode.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the long-term goal? Is it to? And I know we're kind of piloting this. We're kind of leading in this space of this common operating picture, this unified data center that's able to display dashboards on any number of data sets coming in. Is the goal to hopefully show its success to the point where we can get everybody on a similar structured system?
Well, I'll start from the state standpoint because you've already clearly indicated that Manatee was the first county in the state of Florida to use this. There's now a regional pilot project where kind of hard to get some buy-in from some of the counties. And again, I think one of the problems we do with the legislature, and again, this is not a dig at my legislative politicians here, but we talk about a pilot, and nobody in emergency management, I find, wants to change, but everything they want is change. So when you start a pilot program that is not funded in years 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond, people are like, why should I invest and waste my time for a year to prove a concept and not know that it's going to be funded in future years? So for the politicians that might be listening to us, I think that's something we got to fix, because I think we would have more counties in this region sign on if they knew what the strategy was. We've done a pilot, not really maybe communicating the strategy. And is this an objective of the legislature? Does the Florida legislature want us to have a better statewide common operating picture? I know that sounds, like a very simple question that the answer is yes to, but when we say yes, there's going to be a funding request that goes along with it. So we've got to make a decision on, yes, that's something we want, and here's what we're willing to spend on it, and then let's make that what we call recurring funding. Now we have county directors, city directors that will then say, okay, I see the strategy. I know it's bought and paid for. I know that I might have a cost share or something like that, but it's worthwhile to me now. And that's what is missing in this conversation. So we have some counties that have jumped on the pilot for regional type stuff. We've got some that have said, heck no, I will not go, because I don't know what the future holds. So those are just some of the growing pains that we have. Anytime that I, at the state of Florida, get better data, I get more holistic picture, that is a win. Yeah. That is a win. So anything that can help us get there, that's what we want to do. Yeah.
And again, Tony is already, I talked to him. I try to talk to that guy as much as possible. He's kind of the man behind Peregrine, but he was talking about how he is helping out with like local municipalities and cleaning up their data. So, I mean, I think it's got to be baby steps, right? Because a lot of people, I think, aren't even past like square one and just making sure that their data is reliable.
Yeah, not to hog this, but but that's a problem set. We are living right now in I go on my app, I order something, whether that's food, groceries, whatever, and it shows up at my house in probably less than an hour.
Yeah.
Even Amazon, I can order same-day delivery, usually 4-hour, 8-hour delivery. When we've created this mantra that government is expected to live up to, where government should be giving me the exact same answer that the private sector, Amazon's giving me in 4 hours.
Sure.
And we are not there.
Right.
And we just need to be very, very honest. We're not there. Why are we not there? Technology is an issue. Mm-hmm. We're not there because, to your point, we got dirty data. Mm-hmm. If I get what do they call it? The GIGO method, GIGO,
mm-hmm.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
I have to get good data in to get good data out. If our data is bad data, if it's not, if it doesn't have the right headers, it doesn't have the right type of information that we're looking for, the last thing we want to do as government is have more of a distrust with our constituents, because we've now gone and put bad data out. When we put something out, it has got to be golden. It has got to be solid. And if we don't have it in those two formats, it's trash. And once we put out a trash product, that's going to hurt us.
Yeah, and it's tough to get that trust back,
yep,
right?
100%.
And you talked about it even a little bit with like rumor control and that sort of a thing. I'm just really excited as to where we are. It seems like we're leveraging this brand new state-of-the-art, cutting-edge technology, but then in some areas we're merging it with like older traditional media, right? Mm-hmm. To cover those who aren't on social media, the vulnerable older populations. Yep. I think that's just so cool, and I think that this is an exciting time, especially for Manatee County, especially for the state of Florida, and where we've come. I mean, there's no shortage of reps, right? There's no shortage of bad things that are going to happen, be it hurricanes or fires or droughts or what have you. So I think that we're really poised here, not only in the county but in the state as well. We're on the verge of a breakthrough. It feels like that. It's felt like that for a little while now.
Yeah, I'll say this, and Jodie and I have talked about this at the many conversations we have. Emergency management today versus what emergency management will be in 3, 5, and 10 years is night and day difference. We are going to have this industry, and we've seen this with law enforcement, fire, EMS, the way that we tone vehicles out of a station now. All of that is just about 100% automated now, and it speeds the process up. So the technology revolution that law enforcement, fire, EMS, SCADA with our water control facilities, our electric facilities have gone through in the last, say, 20 years, this industry, emergency management, is ripe for that. And again, you're going to see major changes. Like, for example, there are people out there in this space that are doing R&D right now on doing satellite pictometry imagery that will do the damage assessment before disaster, after disaster, overlay the two, and then start kicking out what has a 50% anomaly. Therefore, if it's got a 50% anomaly, it's probably major or destroyed.
Sure.
So we can take and do those just from an overlap and then let UF's supercomputer do the rest in the background while we sleep. So there are, again, I can get really geeked out on technology because I think this industry is ripe for a technology revolution that changes the way that we do things. The listener listening to this say, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. Here's what it means to you. If we can do these damage assessments statewide in, let's say, 24 hours, we run the damage assessment, we get the before picture that was just before landfall, we get the after picture just after landfall, and now we can do those damage assessments in, let's say, 24 to 48 hours. Now we're filing for federal declarations in 48 hours. Wow. That used to be 2, 3, 4 weeks, not days, weeks, to get the Federal Emergency Management Agency individual assistance programs turned on. If we can start getting that stuff turned on in 48 hours, 96 hours, that's what makes a difference to the person that's inside their recliner right now listening to the show.
Yeah, so I nerd out because I'm a drone guy, right? So right now, touching on that spectral pictography, satellite technology, I don't know if I got that right. It was a stretch. But right now, like, we physically have to have people go out and they fly big drones and they take 1,000 pictures and they stitch it all together and then they put that against, and it's literally like a slider, like a before and after. Yep. So you're talking about automating that whole process where we're able to, like you said, eliminate the time that it would take to get a bird up in the sky, fly this flight pattern, and then come back with the data and analyze it. And
again, I think it's a little bit more than that. And I want to make sure that everybody listening to me says that I have, Kevin's going to get us what the governor says. No. We're going to use technology to fast forward the projects. However, anytime that computer system says there's a 50% anomaly here, a human set of eyes are going to go on that and verify it, right? So we're going to verify that, we're going to vet and verify what we're getting. But in Hurricane Helene and Milton, roughly 15,000 parcels had damage on them statewide. Imagine if we could analyze 15,000 parcels in a matter of 24 hours.
Oh, man.
That changes the game completely.
That's so cool. And what you touched on a little bit. You said USF, they're supercomputers?
No, so the University of Florida, I want to make sure I get that right because we got a gator in the room that's listening off the side.
There he is right there.
But UF's got a supercomputer just like FSU's got the super magnet programs and stuff like that. So each one of our colleges and universities, and we got great partnerships with them, they have abilities to help us in the government sector do really, really powerful stuff.
So what is that? I mean, because, again, just in looking at Peregrine and the data points coming in, what sort of processing power? I mean, do we have to scale up that? Or does one university or two universities have enough computing power to make it all happen?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but, because it is my goal over the next 6 months to have some announcements with the governor's office on partnerships that we're forming with our university, our state university and college systems that bring specific skill sets. So I'll just kind of tease it a little bit here. But Florida State University is heavy involved into the drone program. I've already mentioned them about the DIAL, which is the information analysis that they do. University of Florida is heavy into fire science, computing, things of that nature. USF is health and medical. UCF, the number one just rated this last week, and I think it was U.S. News and World Report's #1 emergency management academic program in the country, right down the street in Orlando. Florida International University, probably the world's leader in international international disaster preparedness. Florida Atlantic University runs a statewide mesonet of flood gauges. So again, each one of these universities brings a microcosm aspect to helping the macro level emergency management work. So again, how do we engage technology? How do we go to our universities and help get them to help us engage it, where then they can develop tomorrow's emergency managers today, while we are sitting here, as you started this show with, about 40 years of experience sitting here. How do we start to then take that information and start dumping it into the next generation?
Yeah, and that's a huge topic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we want to keep that talent here in the state, and what better place to craft those strategies and groom that next generation than here in Florida. So obviously hurricane season right around the corner. I know I instinctively just start knocking. It's almost obsessive. What's one thing that heading into this season, and maybe we'll start with you, Kevin, given everything that we know and the strides that we've made, what sort of confidence should our citizens have in, if something should happen, this is what they can expect, and they can expect as good an outcome as possible based off of the talent, the technology that's here?
Man, that's a loaded question. And so here's what I would say. Although this is kind of a hurricane type show, emergency management type show for today, I don't want to be lost on anybody that we're currently experiencing the worst drought, which is going to lead to probably the worst wildfire season we have seen since now the 1950s. We're talking about the last 75 years. We got a briefing from our meteorologist this last week who said we are now approaching the area of the mid-50s. So I want people to know that when we ask you to be prepared, because ultimately that's where I'm going to take this conversation, is what can you expect out of your government? We're ready. Manatee County's ready. Sarasota County's ready. The state of Florida's ready. Our 67 counties are ready. Monday morning, about 36 hours from now, we're going to send out a mass notification launching the state hurricane exercise. So all of our counties, all of our cities that are participating in that have the opportunity to participate for 3 days. We are ready. So what you can expect from your governments, whether it's municipal, county, or state, we're ready. But I'm going to tell you, the listener, I need you to be ready. Jodie needs you to be ready. And what does ready look like for you at your home? That could be a number of things. So I'm going to go through 5 things very quickly. Yeah. Number 1, before you do anything, you got to educate yourself. You got to know what's going on. So what I ask people to do is know your home and know your zone first. What I mean by that is know your home. Do I live in manufactured housing, RV, motorhome, stuff like that? When Jodie and the emergency management staff call for an evacuation, that is always going to be wrapped up into the first level of evacuation. If you live in some type of manufactured home, you need to evacuate, bar none, hard stop. No matter where you're at in Manatee County, you need to evacuate to a safer structure. Next on that know your home is, what year was my regular single-family dwelling structure built? Typically about 2000 is what we go with. If it was built after 2000, it was most likely built to the Florida Building Code. You may be okay to stay right where you're at. All right. So that's the third piece now, or the second piece. The third piece is, I live in a high-rise structure, condominium. There's a lot of them here, right? If I'm dependent on that elevator, evacuate. All right. We had hundreds of calls, I feel like, in Manatee, Sarasota, Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, saying, I'm stuck on the 13th floor of my condo and I can't get down. The elevator's not working. I'm in a walker. They did what we call vertical evacuation. They went to a friend's place up high. Cannot do that. If you're dependent, because my brother-in-law works in the elevator business. He's an elevator foreman for this general area. And he says, Kevin, when saltwater intrusion gets into the elevator system, it's toast.
Game over.
He says months.
Yep.
That is a months-long fix.
$1 million project.
Yep. So we've got to get people to first know their home. And if I'm in one of those situations, I now know, should I evacuate? The next one to do that, know your home, is know your zone. Am I in an evacuation zone? That is different from a flood zone. Flood zone does not equal evacuation zone. You need to know the difference. So please go to Manatee's website. They will walk you through that. I'll let
mymanatee.org/storm.
So go to that website. It'll help you drive to find out if you're actually in an evacuation zone. If you're in an evacuation zone, and the team calls for an evacuation of your zone, evacuate. All right, just do it. If they didn't ask you to evacuate, don't.
Yeah.
Just stay in place. Stay right where you're at. You're okay. So know your home, know your zone. Once you know your home and you know your zone, and the whole principle that is there, do I need to do something? Do I need to take action? Because if I need to take action, I need to do step number 2. That is have a plan for every member of my household.
Right.
So Jodie's kids, her mom and dad live here now too. Does she take care of them? I think Jan and Chip are okay. They're still functional.
They're good.
I just had to give them a shout out there
right.
so that they know I'm thinking about
They'll love that.
But who is it? Whereas I'm a little bit older than Jodie, my in-laws, my wife has to take care of them. So on our plan, Polly has to take care of getting, my in-laws, my dad taken care of, make sure that they're all good. So that's a part of our plan. So we have a plan for every member of our household. Once we have that plan, we know we have an action item. We now have a plan. It's good time to go build that kit for that person. 1 gallon of water per person per day, period. Need you to be ready for 7 days. Why do we say 7 days? Because God forbid a bridge goes out. Not that hasn't happened in Jodie and my lifetime.
Right.
We're really good at building bridges.
Yeah. Yep.
We got one built in 3 days, but what if that would have taken 3 weeks?
Yep.
Right? Are you ready? Can you survive that? So make sure you got enough food and water on hand for 7 days. The pets, everybody that's in your household, make sure you have that done. Now, that leads us to step number 4. Do this today. Because of the wildfire situation, the drought situation, start doing this today. Halfway in your electric charge vehicle or your gas tank is now the new empty. When you get to halfway full is halfway there. All right? We want you to start filling up. That'll cut down on the number of lines, the number of people in lines that need fuel when it's time to evacuate. But if you're somewhere between half and a full tank, you can get on the road and out of harm's way and then start sinking gas or electric charge somewhere else. So that's step number 4, halfway full, halfway there. And then the last thing is step 5 is when we do call for the video, when I say we, me and Jodie, when Jodie more so calls for the evacuation of Manatee County, we want you to evacuate tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. You do not need to live here and go all the way back up to your residence in Michigan or Wisconsin. You just need to go to a safe structure place that's 10, 20 miles away versus traveling hundreds of miles away. When I was a child, Jacksonville, Florida, our family plan was to go all the way to Woodstock, Georgia, 350-something miles away. You don't have to do that anymore. The Florida Building Code is amongst the best in the country, if not the world. We know how to do it. We know how to survive disasters here. We know that you want to stay local, so stay local. Just stay local. So those are the 5 things that, and again, wildfire season is here. Wildfire season is on us. Those will be quick moving, no notice events. Again, halfway full, halfway there. Keep those vehicles between half full electric, half full of gas, and full.
Yeah, and we obviously have done quite a bit of we had the no burn ban for quite a long time, although it was incredibly unpopular. It's something that had to be done. It's good to hear that messaging reinforced from somebody at the state level, that this is something that isn't just happening in Manatee County. It's pretty much everywhere, and it's a big deal. So I had heard people, a couple of teammates the other day said something along the lines of, I think are we in an El Nino year? Is that what we're in? They said, "Oh, it's going to be a a walk in the park this year. Nothing to worry about." I want to hear it from your mouth. is any of that stuff have any bearing that people can actually rely on being true?
So I'll start because so last year we had an El Nino cycle, especially late in the year.
Yep.
If you lived in Jamaica, they got hit by the strongest hurricane on record in U.S. history, in the Northern Hemisphere, Western Hemisphere history. You probably didn't want to be in Jamaica on the west end of the island. And that was an El Nino year. We are supposedly, to your point, going through a super El Nino cycle. Now, what does this really mean? And I am not a meteorologist, so don't take my word for it. I've got some smart meteorologists that inform me. The likelihood that we're going to see an Atlantic approaching storm hit the east coast of Florida is probably rather low. However, there is, and I saw this the other day, that there's like a 40-something% chance that we will experience a tropical cyclone this year.
Sure.
So if it's not coming from the Atlantic, where is it coming from? All eyes on the Gulf, all eyes on the Southern Caribbean.
Right.
That is where Hurricane Melissa churned up. So we need to keep our eyes there. So what happens? That's going to be very, very warm water. We're going to have, because of the El Nino cycle, or as some people are saying, super El Nino, especially as we get into August, what that's going to do is it's going to produce weather fronts every 3, 5, 7 days coming across, very swiftly moving, very rapid. So you say, okay, well, that's cool that it's going to get whatever's coming right on out of here. Well, that's very true. But with every one of those fronts, we could have tornadic activity and severe weather associated with every single one of those fronts. So here's the worst case scenario. We have a super El Nino cycles, and this is Kevin Guthrie's, again, non-meteorologist. I feel like Mike Boylan on Mike Weather's page. I'm not a meteorologist. I did not sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But based on 38 years of doing this job now, we have a very, very strong front coming across west to east across the United States. We've got something that spins up in the Campeche Bay, Yucatan Peninsula. It starts to ride this front. This front brings in severe weather, cycles off a couple of EF2 tornadoes. The hurricane then comes right behind it, follows up, has a Gulf Coast falling storm, west central Gulf Coast falling storm. And then again, probably going to be moving very quickly, but nevertheless, it's going to be coming through the area. So you get the severe weather, the tornado, followed by the hurricane, and on out of here. So again, if we go back and look at Hurricane Melissa, probably a very, very, very similar setup to what I'm just talking about. Again, Hurricane Melissa, I think it was 180-something mile-an-hour winds, Category 5 hurricane, hit the western side of Jamaica, caused severe, severe damage.
So regardless of what people might be saying, probably not worth letting your guard down.
No, absolutely not.
No, I think people need to kind of try to start getting out of the mindset that we're only concerned about a big hurricane. We're only concerned about a major disaster. Because all of those weather fronts, they're going to bring rain. And then the ground gets saturated. And then if you do get the hurricane, now you're going to have flooding where you may not have had flooding before. So it all builds on each other. And so I'm not worried about a big hurricane. We all see the hurricanes coming. I think that's probably the easiest disaster that we respond to because we see it coming. We know it's there.
I agree.
But if we have a super wet season followed by a hurricane, there's going to be a lot of problems associated with that. And so I think if it makes people feel better to say, hey, we're in this super El Nino and it's going to be a light season, plan a cruise, plan a vacation, great. But none of us that do this job are going to sit back and count on that, and we're not going to plan on that. We are always going to plan for a worst case scenario, for 1,000 different scenarios, because each one requires a slight shift in your response, but it requires that you're paying attention to it and that you've planned for it. We don't ever want to be caught flat-footed going, oh my gosh, we never saw that coming.
And for me, the big takeaway that Jodie just mentioned is, again, we're ready for that. All of these scenarios we just talked about, which is a boatload of scenarios in the last, we'll call it 3-4 minutes, we're ready. So again, we need you, the local homeowner, to be ready.
Right. If we call for an evacuation, we really mean it. We're not doing it for our health. It is not fun to set up a shelter.
Right.
It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of coordination. And if we feel that it's necessary to open a shelter and tell you you are not safe where you are, please listen to that message. We saw that prior to Helene, I think we had about 1,000 people in the shelter. That number grew exponentially during the storm. We did something over 300 rescues until we had to pull the trucks off the road.
Yep.
Prior to Milton, we had over 11,000 people in shelters ahead of time. So I don't want anyone to get complacent and think, well, they're just calling for an evacuation because that's just what they do, and
Right.
they're just playing it safe.
Yeah.
No, we really mean it. We've put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah,
we are asking you to listen.
I said this morning in the presentation this morning, but to Jodie's point, I used to be a local emergency manager too. The single biggest decision an emergency manager at the local level will ever make, the single biggest and single most difficult decision that local emergency manager will ever make is to order evacuations, because you're either going to be a hero or you're going to be a zero. And it's not that they all have hero complexes, but again, it is the trust of your community as it relates to the government sector. You only get one time to get that right, and sometimes, again, we have a right-hand hook of a hurricane at the last second, and that no computer model predicted. But when Jodie makes that decision, when others make that decision to pull the evacuation card and turn it on, please know that your local emergency managers have painstakingly gone through a lot of data, and it's not just because they want to do it for their health. They're doing that for the protection of their residents and citizens based on the information they're synthesizing.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. I can see it and I can feel it when you guys are making that decision. It's got to be so tough because it's going to be easy for somebody to sit back, armchair quarterback kind of a thing, and be like, well, that was a big nothing burger. But had we had the evacuation levels of Helene with the impact of Milton, there could have been loss of life.
Right. I mean, I'll just say, I guess, the unpopular thing. I would much rather you as a resident be uncomfortable for a night in a shelter. I would prefer it if you walked out of there like, wow, that was a nothing burger.
Right.
Because it means that you listened to the message. It means that you took it seriously. But I would rather you be uncomfortable for a night and me be wrong than you blow off the message and not survive the storm to prove me wrong. So please listen.
Yes, and go to mymanatee.org/manateeready. The information is up there year-round. We're constantly updating it. You can find your zones. You can figure out what your evacuation level is. You can get information on what kind of things you need in your emergency kit. A lot of the things that you had mentioned, Kevin, a lot of things you had mentioned and are always mentioning, Jodie, can be found there, mymanatee.org/manateeready. And then if there is an activation of some level, mymanatee.org/storm, and we're able to scale up and take hundreds of thousands of views thanks to that reliable technology that we have. Oh, and that sound means we have reached our lightning round. We have got Kevin Guthrie, Florida Division of Emergency Management Director, and Director of Public Safety, Jodie Fiske. All right, these are quick questions, even quicker answers. Are you two ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we'll start with Kevin on this one. Kevin, the most challenging response you've ever been a part of?
Surfside building collapse.
Jodie?
I'm going to say Piney Point.
Okay. Jodie, your go-to hurricane snack?
Red Bull.
Is that a snack?
I think it's a snack.
It might be a snack. Okay, all right, I'll accept it.
I mean, if there's candy bars, I'll jump on that too.
It's got to be sugar cookies.
Sugar cookies? Okay. I went through candy withdrawal after our last activation. I don't know. It was really tough. So you and Jodie have known each other for years. What spirit animal would you assign to each other?
Without a doubt, no doubt, she is absolutely a lioness.
Very nice.
I mean, she is 100%. She's
seen
a predator.
That. Yeah.
I feel like a cheater now because I was actually going to go with like Mufasa. Like he is just so calm. He is the calm in the storm for everybody, and always has something like wise to say and something to, especially for me. Like he knows when I've hit a point. If I call him and immediately I'm just like and he's like, okay,
yep,
we got this.
And that's what you need. That's the thing I've noticed about every person I've ever worked with in emergency management and public safety. You guys are all like so cool-headed, and it rubs off, right? The rest of the staff kind of feels that and reflects that same attitude back. So thank you guys for keeping your stuff together. If you were not in the field of emergency management, what do you think you would be doing?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like I'd go to American Idol, but I don't feel like that would work.
No, I've heard you sing.
We can. I would be trying.
What's this? I don't know anything
Oh,
about
hold
this. I've
on.
known you for a
What?
decade.
There's
sing?
video.
There's video.
There's video.
There's-
Have you not shared this with him?
You are such a traitor. Oh, you're out. No full-size candy bars for you.
We have to, yes. So Valor Commons, it's the groundbreaking of our new Veterans Resource Hub, and she steps up to the podium and unleashes a beautiful rendition of America. No, was it America? It was the Star Spangled Banner.
No, you guys strong-armed me into doing
We
the
did.
national
We
anthem.
did. But wonderful job. Yeah. So send them the video. My
I
God.
outsource that stuff now.
So if you weren't in emergency management, how about you, sir?
I would be teaching. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. One hidden talent, I think you just divulged that,
Yeah, I
right?
outed myself.
Singing. How about you, sir?
So I'm also a musician at heart. I play brass instruments, piano, percussion, stuff like that.
Wow.
See, so what I'm hearing is we need like an EM band.
We should. Right? Jodie and the Hurricanes.
Ouch.
There you go.
Goodness.
There you go.
I don't think I said I wanted to lead.
Oh no, you got
Be like
to
more of a producer.
Well, he's got the
suggestion.
instrumental background. You've got the. All right. So one thing that every Floridian should have before hurricane season is.
Their preparedness kit and everything that goes in it, without a doubt.
And a plan.
And a plan. Yep.
Yeah.
One piece of advice you wish residents would follow every single hurricane season.
Listen to your local emergency manager. If they ask you to evacuate, evacuate. If they don't ask you to evacuate, stay in place.
Yeah, concur.
And finally, if you had to evacuate with only 3 items besides your phone, what would it be?
Number one would be a backup battery to keep my phone going for a little bit longer.
Yep.
Number 2, I would definitely say cash, because cash is king. You never know when your Apple Pay or your credit card's not going to work. And then 3, and I have to thank my wife who's just over here. She makes sure I have Scooby snacks for the car for when we're getting ready to go. Those are my 3 things.
That's awesome.
Red Bull.
I knew that was good.
I would need batteries for my kids' tablets.
Okay.
Because, the tablet dies and all what breaks loose.
Yep.
And cash.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, Kevin Guthrie, Florida Division of Emergency Management Director, thank you so much for making the time. Public Safety Director Jodie Fiske, it's always good to see you. Thank you guys for coming down here, sharing your expertise, letting us know about the technology, the talent, what goes into this, how we coordinate on a much larger level sometimes than just Manatee County, especially if things get real. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Jodie. We'll see you around the county. Hopefully not this year in the EOC, but we'll see you around. On behalf of the men and women doing work that matters behind the scenes for you, I'm Casey Zempel.
I'm Jodie Fiske.
I'm Kevin Guthrie.
Make it a great day to live, work, and play in Manatee County. The opinions expressed by guests of Chambers Changes and Conversations do not necessarily reflect those of Manatee County government or its employees.